What's up, everybody? I'm Damon Hatfield, known Godzilla enthusiast, and I'm super excited for this panel. We've got something really special for you today. Of course, everyone's excited for Godzilla versus Kong. We have an exclusive clip for Godzilla versus Kong coming up in just a little bit. But first, we also have the director of the film here on this very show to answer your questions. Adam Wingard, thank you so much for joining us here at IGN FanFest.
Hi, great to be here.
So, we've got, like I said, we've got a bunch of fan questions we're going to get to. However, I doubt there are too many people out there that are bigger Godzilla fans than myself. I'm surrounded here on my desk. All of my friends, all these little good boys over here. I've got a couple.
Good boy back there.
Yeah, I've got a couple stickers I've yet to find a suitable home for. Got my copy of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee on Nintendo GameCube. Even my 18-month-old son has a bunch of this stuff with these little plushies he loves. He already can say Godzilla. Yeah, even have a little Mecha Godzilla back here.
Adorable.
Now that I've proved my cred, I'm going to take the first fan question here, and I'd like to know, Adam. This is the third of the recent Godzilla films in this Godzilla cinematic universe. Should we be thinking this is like the final installment in a trilogy?
Well, I mean, I guess just like any sequel, that's up to if people are super into this one, which I'm biased, but I think they're definitely going to be into it. So who knows what the future holds, but if the fan enthusiasm's there, then absolutely. Why would we ever end this thing if people want more?
I think people are going to want more. Godzilla's been around for a long, long time at this point. What are you incorporating from the first two films, Godzilla 2014 and King of the Monsters? I know we've got Millie Bobby Brown and Kyle Chandler returning. Any other returning characters?
Well, I mean, it's Monarch itself, the organization, which is sort of what the MonsterVerse is kind of pinned around, the organization, the ones that are researching the monsters and all that. They're sort of like the through line to the whole series. There are other characters that show up, but if I told you about them, then it might spoil some things. So this is a movie that has a lot of surprises in it, and there's a lot of things that I can't say. It's really funny. I've just been doing some interviews. I've just started sort of like my kind of press tour recently, and this is the first time I've ever really been on something where I just have to constantly say, look, I can't say anything more about that, and you don't want me to. This is not the way you want to find out about this stuff. Is you want to watch the movie and be surprised and excited. But this is a sequel to those films, and it's a sequel to Kong Skull Island as well.
So Godzilla's look, his design has changed a lot over the years. It changes a lot from movie to movie. There's hardly been two movies in a row where he looks the same. And I think there was even some slight designs between Godzilla 2014 and King of the Monsters. So that's just to ask, has his design been tweaked anymore again?
Well, that's a really good question, because that's something that I put a lot of thought in, and I kind of agonized over, because Legendary, they definitely gave me the opening where whatever I wanted to do with Godzilla, I had an opportunity to do some changes to him. And that's very tempting, but at the end of the day, I felt like Mike Dougherty changed the fins to the classic maple leaf look, and that's probably something I would have done. But ultimately, what was really important to me is that I wanted this film to feel like that this was the legitimate Godzilla versus Kong. When I think back to the original movie, King Kong versus Godzilla, I remember like having conversations with my friends talking about that film when I was a kid, and we were still debating who would win in a fight, Godzilla or King Kong. And that film, for one, doesn't really pick a winner. It's very much a draw. It's very unclear and muddy who wins. But I think even more than that, an issue I have with that movie, and it's a similar issue I have with Batman versus Superman, another versus movie, is that, like, just to talk about Godzilla versus King Kong is, at that point, King Kong was very much a stop motion character. That's how we knew him. That's what he looked like. And then, obviously later on in the 70s, you have the Rick Baker version, and that's sort of like what we identified King Kong as, but it's still relatively similar to the original. The Toho version of King Kong in King Kong versus Godzilla, he's so different than any other version we've seen. It's the first time we've seen a guy in a suit, and just his look, he just looks way different than any version. So it doesn't quite feel like this is the definitive King Kong versus Godzilla, even if the movie had, kind of picked a winner. And so going into this, I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking about Batman versus Superman, and it's a similar thing where, you know, you have Christian Bale as the definitive Batman in the Christopher Nolan trilogy, and that's who we knew him as. When Batman versus Superman comes around, that's the first time we see the recasted Batman as Ben Affleck. And it's kind of in a different universe. It's in the Zack Snyder universe, which is very different than the Nolan thing. You know, and this is just my opinion, but my problem with that movie is just on a fundamental aesthetic level almost, that like it felt like a different Batman, so it didn't feel like the true legitimate Batman versus Superman movie. And so even though I had the opportunity to change Godzilla, you know, and in retrospect, you know, like, do I wish that I made his head a little bit bigger? You know, I sometimes wish that his head was bigger, but he's so cool, and he's so like, he's had a couple movies already building up to this point. And I just wanted this to feel like the real matchup. I wanted you to walk away from this. I wanted there to be no more arguments on the playground. This is the decider. You know, you don't have to debate it anymore. You watch this film. That's Godzilla. That's King Kong. They're beating the shit out of each other, and one wins. And, you know, that's it.
Man, you get me so excited. I always liked when Godzilla got really cartoonish in the 70s with big eyes, because at that time I think their audience was entirely children. Always liked that look, but I really like this look. I like Legendary's taking Godzilla as well. Any chance this guy or these guys get any screen time again?
Well, you know, I mean, it would be weird if Ghidorah didn't somehow get mentioned in this movie, especially not just because Ghidorah kind of changed the world, but you know, where the last film leaves off. I mean, everybody's seen the post-cred scene, so there's obviously something in there. But again, I'm not going to say what that is, and you know, we'll see. You know.
And they're the last one standing.
Let's bring up our first fan question here, and this is actually from we got a video submission from IGN user The Elderly for Ready to Go. Alexio, roll that beautiful fan footage.
Hello, IGN Fan Festival. I have a question for Adam Wingard. With Godzilla on the warpath across the globe in this new film, will we be seeing things from his perspective much in the same vein as we'll be seeing Kong's perspective through the Hollow Earth? Frankly, the first trailer was amazing, and hats off to you, the cast, and the crew for all the hard work that clearly went into this film. Long live the king.
Long live the king, indeed. Yeah, I think the first trailer we saw sort of like opened up from Kong's perspective and presented Godzilla as the bad guy. So I do like that question. How much are we going to be following along from Godzilla's perspective?
You know, the MonsterVerse films have gone through so many different styles with the different filmmakers, and each time one of these movies is made, I think that the audiences are more comfortable with it, the studio's more comfortable with it, in terms of allowing the monsters to just be characters, you know. And honestly, I think the audience would have always been fine with it, but it's one of those things that's it's a scary leap of faith, I think, you know. And I happen to have, you know, come in here, you know, in the fourth film in the series, and I have the luxury of, you know, standing on the shoulders of all these great directors who have set up these great worlds and so forth. And, you know, and ultimately right now it's just time. It's like everybody's ready to see, you know, these monsters treated just totally as characters. It's like, you know, there's like a whole cliche about like, you know, people talk about these movies in terms of like the human story and the monster story. And for me, it was always trying to make sure that we're talking about one thing, but we're also not taking away from one or the other. I mean, you know, you have to look at these movies in the same way that you would have looked at them whenever you were a kid watching them. And ultimately, you know, as a kid, you just want to get to the really cool monster stuff. You want the monsters to be on screen. They're on the poster, you know, they're in the trailer. You know, why do you have to wait around for all this stuff? And we got the tools and we got the talent to do it. And so that's kind of what we do. I mean, I'm not going to say like in terms of like how much we lean towards Godzilla and Kong from their perspective, but there's definitely large sections of the movie where we allow the monsters to guide us through lots of the film and see it from their perspective. And I think that going forward, if there's a continuation to these films, I think you're going to see even more of that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we at some point end up, if these things keep being successful, which I hope they are, that we will see films that are basically 30% humans and the rest monsters. But you know, that's just me. It's easy for me to say these things, but I think it's a real thing, because that's what's going to bring people to see them. You know, that's what we're there for. So that's what we're delivering in this movie as well.
Give us the prehistoric Godzilla film that's just all monsters, no humans.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that? I mean, who wouldn't want to see more of monsters do? I mean, you could have the monsters do literally nothing, and it's going to be incredible. You know, like they can just, you know, I mean, you'll see. We have a couple sequences where we even play with that in the film, just casual monster things, and you know, that's really enjoyable to watch.
This is a question from Eris Gashi on YouTube. Yeah, so will Godzilla have new powers? In Godzilla 2014, he had his fire breath, and then King of the Monsters, they introduced him going nuclear, having that sort of like energy pulse at the end of the movie. So any new powers this time out?
Again, you know, I don't want to spoil the movie, but I will say that you're going to see Godzilla do things that you've never seen him do before. You're going to see him act different ways. And so there's going to be a lot of really fun surprises. And Godzilla is the heel in this movie. I mean, you see it in the trailer. He's causing a lot of problems. And the fun thing about when Godzilla's causing problems is that means he's blowing a lot of shit up, and he's causing a lot of destruction and mayhem. And so, you know, for me, I get to have fun with that. That's one of the best parts of making this film is, you know, I get the naughty Godzilla, and he causes a lot of havoc.
So you're known for a lot of horror movies. Your next 2016 Blair Witch VHS. Are you bringing any of those horror sensibilities to Godzilla vs. Kong?
I think that no matter, even if I tried not to, I would still do it. I mean, funny enough, this is the first PG-13 movie I've ever made. You know, it's definitely got some gory moments in it, actually. Like, they're still very fun. I was always very conscious of, I don't want this to be disturbing, but I do want it to be gooey and gross and kind of crazy in places. And so there's a lot of things that play like that. Like one of my very first movies, Pop Skull, you know, it was a $3,000 film, and it's about a kid. He's robo-tripping, which is when you drink too much cough medicine, and he's seeing ghosts in his house and stuff. And there's a sequence in that movie where the kid's tripping out on cough medicine, and there's all these crazy, hallucinations in it. There's actually a sequence in this movie that's inspired by that. So this might be the first $200 million movie that has a sequence that's inspired by drinking too much Robitussin.
Wow. Got to get Guinness World Records on the phone. This is a question from Spectre Boy on YouTube. How much time does it take to do a 1-minute sequence of Godzilla and Kong fighting?
There's literally no way to answer that, because everything's done so segmented. I mean, you're doing it in different shots. I mean, like the way that the VFX is laid out is, you know, obviously you start with either a previs. Sometimes you even start in the sequence just in the post-viz. But in some form or fashion, you're doing a sort of first pass animation on the action and on the monsters and stuff. The assets have already been built, but you're getting your camera angles and your action down, the timing and stuff. And then from there, once that's all agreed upon, then you go into different levels of animation. And each level, it gets more and more detailed. And certain shots are just more complicated than others. I mean, the more complex ones, even though they're done in the same sequence, they might, I mean, some of them, you know, we'd get a shot just at the very end of production, but we'd have other parts of it almost done right at the beginning. So, you know, it's just like every other thing in film. It's like this big mystery when you're looking at it from the outside. It just looks like this big stew. You know, you look at a production schedule and you're like, so you're shooting the 76th page of the script, you know, on the first day. And then, you know, the last day of production, you're shooting the first page of the script. You know, it's like, it doesn't make any sense, you know, from an outside perspective, but there's a logic that always goes in it, and you can't rush anything. It always has to happen in the order that it happens in. And, so a minute worth of the like action, couldn't even begin to tell you.
These are dangerous times. Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people, and we don't know why.
This is a good question from IGN user Kaijuologist. He says, the revealing of Ren Serizawa is a bit of a surprise. In the novelization of Godzilla King of the Monsters, We know that Dr. Serizawa had a family, but he didn't talk about them very much. Since Rin Serizawa is in the picture now, what will his relationship to Godzilla and Kong be like?
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of those where, like, if I answered the question directly, then then it would just give too much away. And so I hate to be the guy, but you're just gonna have to wait and see, you know, because anything I tell you now, you wouldn't even understand without the context of the film, and there'd be spoilers involved, and nobody wants that.
Yes, luckily we don't have to wait too long to get the answers to all these questions. We are running a little short on time. I wanted to ask you one thing before we go. We learned just last week that you're going to be directing a sequel to Face Off, which is surprising news, to say the least. Not news I was expecting to hear, but exciting nonetheless. Is there anything you can tell us, and can we expect to see any familiar faces?
I would, like I said on my Instagram, I would never make a remake of Face Off. I would never make a reboot. And I've seen a lot of people, even after I said that this is a direct sequel, they keep calling it a reboot hybrid sequel or remake hybrid sequel. It's none of that. This is Face Off 2, you know, and I can't say what that means exactly, but this is either going to be the definitive follow-up to that movie and everything that entails, or I'm not going to make it, because it's got to, everything's got to line up perfectly. And the script's going really good. Simon and I are almost finished. And Simon and I actually have been working, Simon Barrett, my writer who I worked with on You're Next and The Guest, you know, we've been working a lot over quarantine, and, you know, this was our main project, but we also have an original script we just finished. And, you know, we have a couple things we've been working on, so it's been really cool. But yeah, Face Off 2, that's what it is. It is Face Off 2. And I'll just leave it at that.
Now it should be the moment we've all been waiting for. We have a clip from Godzilla vs. Kong that we're going to share with you right now. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us here on IGN FanFest. And I just couldn't be more excited to see this movie in just a few weeks now.
Thank you. It's been a blast.
Delta 2